From selfie to self-confident, I'm showing you how I take my Instagram photos. Hello Starlets, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the best version of yourself and live your dreams. So if you want to be an Everyday Starlet, be sure you hit that subscribe button and be sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. I actually have not been spending as much time on YouTube. Sorry for the absence, but I've actually been spending a ton of time on Instagram, so if you're not following me on Instagram, you should be. My Instagram has kind of transitioned into more of like a lingerie body positivity type of a space, although I still shout out beauty and makeup brands and stuff, and I still try to show my makeup looks and different things like that. So it's kind of like a culmination of everything Everyday Starlet. And I was trying to transition into doing some of that here on YouTube, but YouTube does not like when I do lingerie videos. YouTube doesn't like my boobs. Probably just the fact that I even said boobs means this video is gonna get demonetized. I don't know. Anyway, I do all my Instagram photos myself, and I get a lot of people that ask me like how I do the selfies and how I take the pictures of myself. So I thought I would attempt to film it so that I can show you guys what I do. This might not work at all, I don't know. So I'm gonna try to film it and show you guys how I set up my camera and some of the equipment that I use, and hopefully give you guys some tips if you guys want to take photos of yourself, whether it's in lingerie or makeup photos or just, you know, any kind of photos of yourself. Hopefully you'll get some tips. So if you guys want to know how I take my Instagram photos, then just keep watching. Now, here is my camera. This is a Canon T5i Canon camera. The lens I have on here is a, say 40mm. I am really not an expert when it comes to cameras. I actually think I've had this one since I started blogging and vlogging and stuff. This is what I do all my photos on because I have a remote, which I'll show you in a second. To be honest, I've been having a few issues with my camera. I'm not an expert when it comes to cameras and, you know, settings and everything. I do know that it's been letting in a lot more light than it used to, and I've been playing around with the settings and stuff and it's been having a little trouble focusing. So I'm not an expert to tell you what kind of settings or what kind of camera or anything. This is the only DSLR camera that I've ever owned. I'm filming right now on my Canon G7X, which is my vlogging camera, which I love, but I don't like it as much for taking photos. I prefer my Canon for actually taking photos. And I use my vlogging camera when I'm just like carrying it around and talking to you, but if I actually like sit down to film a formal video, I use my Canon. I always try to film and do video in as much natural light as possible, but because this camera has been weird with settings and it's been letting in a lot more light and things have been blurrier, I waited for a sunny day to film, but I actually have like the shades, if I can show you. I have the shades closed and they're actually closed up to let less lighting in. Honestly, when it comes to stuff like this, you really just have to play around with settings, you know, the settings on your camera, the lighting setups. It's really a learning process. I've been doing a lot of photos and I've been doing this for like about a year now, so I've learned and I've adjusted along the way, and I know it has a lot to do with like how much light you have available and what kind of space you have available. So I've kind of moved a few things around in my bedroom to, you know, adjust for like what gets seen and what doesn't. So it's a matter of just like trying out your space, taking some photos. Some of them, if they come out horrible, they never have to see the light of day. That's the beautiful thing about taking selfies. You can delete them. I don't recommend deleting anything in your camera until you check it on your computer. I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, I think, you know, nobody has to see them. You can always get rid of them at some point. So, you know, you can just relax, have fun, and just try stuff out and just see what happens. It's a total learning process. My photos when I originally started doing this were very different than what I do now because I've just learned and adjusted along the way. Okay, next what I have here is a mirror. This mirror is so old. I have had this mirror since, oh my God, since I think I bought it like just after college or something, which is, I'm embarrassed as to how long ago that was. But yeah, I think I got it in Crate and Barrel. I like it because it's on a stand, which is a really sturdy stand. So it stands straight up and down, and it's freestanding and it swivels. You can see it, which works really well for how I set things up. I have to admit, because this is a very modern looking mirror and I kind of wanted something that felt a little bit more vintage, glam, you know, that fit my aesthetic a little bit more. But I haven't been able to find a mirror that I really like that has all these qualities in it. So for now, I use this one. Little side note, I always wear heels when I take my photos. You don't really see them in my photos the way I take my photos. It's just the way I take my photos. My feet just rarely ever end up on camera. I just find that when I wear heels, it makes my posture a little bit straighter, and it also gives me a little bit more height, and I just find that is a better setup for where my camera and my mirror sit. Honestly, if it's really cold, sometimes I'll wear socks and heels, which is not sexy at all, but sometimes it gets cold here in New England, so you gotta do what you gotta do. It's totally optional, but I just find that when I wear heels, even if you can't see them, I just feel like it helps. It helps. So I wanted to add that tip. Now here's the thing with this camera. This camera has a viewfinder that you can move forward. So I always move this forward. I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna kind of adjust this, and I kind of try to adjust it so that, and this is just for me and my setup, but I try to line it up with the curtain. That's just what I use as a marker for where my camera is set up. Then I come over to my mirror and I look back at my viewfinder, but I try to adjust my mirror here. I try to line it up with the edge right here of my bureau, which I know you can't see, but let me see if I can get close. I feel like if I get close, I'm gonna block it. I can see that the mirror is lined up with the edge. But all it is just, you know, you get to know where your camera should be lined up to get the best image. It's really just trial and error. You learn from practice. This thing is key. This is, I believe, called a shutter remote. I'm gonna try to link everything I can find in the description box below so you guys can find this. Basically, this is just like a shutter release button, and it's a remote. I'm sure there's a ton out there. I don't know if this one's still available. I've had this one forever. This remote, any kind of like shutter remote, has been just a lifesaver when it comes to taking these photos. All right, now I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to really see this, trying to get as much detail as possible, but like, let me back up here. Like, I'm in the mirror, so I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and I can see, okay, so this camera is in the reflection in the mirror, and I can see myself in the viewfinder. See? So I can kind of see myself. I can't see myself very well, but I can see at least that I'm in the frame. Now I find that I can play around with the shutter release, and sometimes I can aim it at the mirror and the reflection will go back. Sometimes I actually have to kind of just like point it back at me from the camera. And I have a second once I hit it to get in position. So what I try to do is hide the hand that's holding the shutter release, or sometimes I'll just drop it. And I usually have a second. I don't like to drop it because then I have to keep picking it back up again. But let me just show you. I'm aiming it at the mirror, and it just took a photo of me. Now here's the photo I took in the viewfinder. Now it's kind of hard to tell, you know, camera taking a photo of a camera, but it actually closed up more on the me that was closer to the camera, which is a common issue. Really, that's just playing around with it because it's really hard to focus when you're not the one behind the camera. I'm kind of out of focus here, but you can see that I took the photo, and that, I mean, you can only see this camera, but you can't see this actual camera right here in the mirror. And that's generally how I take my pictures. Getting myself in focus is tricky. It really just takes practice and kind of playing around with your angles, but that's the gist of how I do it. So once I've taken a bunch of photos, I go through the viewfinder and I check, and I just kind of see to make sure that I'm kind of like, you know, on track, that I'm actually in camera, that it looks like I'm in focus. Sometimes it's really hard to tell if you're actually in focus or not, just on the viewfinder. Which leads me to another very important tip that I want to mention. Don't delete any photos, unless there's some where, like, you know, your eyes are shut, or even then, like, I just don't think you should delete any photos, because I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a photo in the viewfinder and like either thought, oh my god, that's the perfect picture, that's the one I'm gonna choose, and then when I put it on my computer and I go to, like, you know, crop it and everything, I'm like, oh no, it's terrible, or like, you know, something's wrong or something's off or something. And there's definitely been times when I've seen something in the viewfinder that have been like, that's so unflattering, that looks terrible, and then I put it on my computer and I'm like, you know what, I can actually work with that photo, and I can actually make it, you know, if I adjust it, maybe adjust the lighting, adjust the coloring, you know, I edit my photos. That's another thing I'm gonna tell you right now. I edit my photos, and I know that people say that means I'm not body positive if I edit my photos, but you know what? Like, my personal point of view with, you know, being body confident and doing this for body confidence is that, you know, in the media, we are so bombarded with these, you know, they're overly retouched images of these, you know, supermodel bodies. So yeah, they're not realistic, but they are, like, they are considered mainstream beautiful. And, you know, I know to some people their answer to that is to take real bodies and to show them in a real way, unretouched. If that makes you feel good and that helps your body confidence and that helps you, and you know, and I'm completely support people that choose to do that. Personally, my goal in, I feel like my role in the body confidence world is I like really glamorous photos, and I like, you know, wearing a lot of makeup, and you know, yeah, I smooth out my skin. If I have a blemish, I'll airbrush that thing out in post. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I nip and tuck things in, you know what I mean? Sometimes I even things out. I'm not doing anything drastic, and I definitely notice in this process, I'm less obsessed with editing my photos. I'm a little bit more okay with showing more of what's actually, you know, shows up on camera. My goal is to show regular bodies, because my body is not perfect. It is not, I could never be a supermodel. I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna ever be a Hadid sister. My goal in this whole movement is, I think that I wanna show like a regular body, a regular girl who just works hard at what she does, who's had weight problems, who has extra skin, who has extra whatever, and I wanna show myself in my best, most glamorous way. I feel like that's my role, is to be like, hey, if I can be, you know, sexy and glamorous and whatever, then anybody can too, you know? So if you wanna show real, raw, you know, cellulite, wrinkles, blemishes, if you wanna show that stuff on social media, go ahead. If that's your journey, I fully support everybody's right to do that. That's just not my goal in what I'm trying to do, if that makes any sense. I hope that what I do actually came across. It's difficult it is for me to actually take these selfies and set everything up and stuff. It's so much more difficult for me film this and try to show you what I'm doing. So I hope that this came across. I'm gonna try to link everything that I mentioned below, you know, everything that I can find. But you know, you don't necessarily need my specific stuff. You can adjust it to your home space, your life, your budget, whatever it is. For me, yes, I have some very expensive equipment, but you know, I invested in this stuff to do my blog and to do YouTube and stuff. So for me, it was more of a business investment, which is why I have this stuff. I totally understand if you're like, you know, I just want to learn to take selfies in my house, and you don't want to spend all this money on all this equipment. I totally understand. You can do all this stuff on a budget. I'm just kind of showing you the technique that I use. I know there are a lot of people that post, you know, sexy photos on Instagram. I have a whole post, Instagram post about sexy and feeling sexy and how I don't really feel sexy, but you know, that's a whole other thing. Like, I don't do this, I mean, obviously I want attention because I want people to follow me on social media, but I'm not doing this because like I want attention, or I want male attention, or I'm like, hey, look at me, look at my photos. Like, you know, I encourage you, if you enjoy my photos, please read my captions, because I put a lot of time and effort into really sharing captions that I hope are life lessons or inspiring and things like that. So also, part of the reason why I do this, and I've mentioned this a few times on Instagram, and I want to make sure I mention it here, is that I spent many, many years, I've been a lot of different weights in my life, and I've spent a lot of years really hating my body, hating the way I look, just hating myself in general. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. I don't want to get serious with this, but anyway. Yeah, so this is honestly my way of just being comfortable in my body, being comfortable showing my body, but showing it in the way that I'm comfortable, being glamorous, and you know, I've fallen in love with lingerie, and you know, follow me on Instagram, you can hear a lot more of my story and why I do this. You know, and if you guys wanna, you know, feel more confident, feel better about yourself, and start taking selfies, you know, you don't have to be in lingerie, you can be in clothes or whatever you wanna do. You know, this is just how I take my photos, and I wanted to share that with you guys because a lot of people asked, and I hope I hope this was informative. Be sure to ask me any questions below. My battery's dying, so give this video a big thumbs up if you found it helpful. A while back, I was suffering from anxiety and depression, and I truly believe that beauty and makeup and fashion and taking care of myself saved my life, and I believe it can save yours too. So if you want to be an everyday starlet, be sure you hit that subscribe button. You can follow me on all my social media channels, especially Instagram. All the links will be in the description box below, along with a link to everything I can find in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.